Hey guys, what's up? It's Lizzie Jane, and we are back with another episode of the Lizzie Jane podcast. This week, we have the one and only dubstep bass music extraordinaire, Ivory, who is now touring in the States, joining me today for such a lovely, insightful conversation. It was so great for Andy and I to be able to chat while he was in Denver for his show with Company. He has been doing tour stops with Company, Excision, DJ Diesel, aka Shaquille O'Neal, and so many more. He originally is from Paris, France, and he has just been putting out absolute bangers and setting the tone for other up-and-coming bass producers for the last, give or take, 7, 8, 9 years, with crazy releases on Never Say Die Black Label, Disciple Roundtable, reworking tracks from absolute A-tier acts such as Slander and Nightmare, and many, many more. It has been absolutely insane to watch him grow, and just in this conversation, you will really see what it takes for an international act to be able to come to the States and tour stateside. And it's just so lovely. And it was just too cool to be able to open up his creative mind, talk about some music, production, creative techniques, touring on the road, some do's and don'ts, and so much more. Remember, if you love what we are doing here, the conversations we are having, the guests you are hearing speak, please make sure to subscribe on YouTube, like, leave a comment, share. By sharing, by word of mouth, it is the best way to get this podcast out there. As always, I greatly appreciate you all. Please keep an eye out. We are rolling some new things out on my Patreon soon. Patreon.com/ThisIsLizzieJane. I do one-on-one lessons, sample packs, edit packs. I'm rolling out some vlog series coming up on YouTube and Patreon. So make sure you hop on over, take a look, check it out. Share this podcast with your friends, and let's just hop into the conversation. This is Lizzie Jane, and you're tuning into my podcast with Ivory. Okay, Andy, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast
Thanks
today.
for having me.
Yes, you are here all the way from Paris, France, and you are finally in the United States for your music and shows.
Yes, after all these years waiting for it, so excited.
Does it just feel, I guess not necessarily surreal, but to a point where you've worked so hard, and I think a lot of fans and listeners and supporters don't often realize how difficult it is for an artist overseas to get their visa. Tell me about your journey. Like, how long have you been applying for your visa? Like, what did you have to do to get here to just play shows?
Yeah, well, that's a big thing, to be honest. Getting a visa when you're in Europe to work in the US as an artist, because obviously all visas are not the same, is very complicated. First of all, you need money, which is probably the biggest thing.
Yeah,
a lot of money to apply, to get a lawyer. Also have press interviews, a lot of media people talking about you.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of want to show the US immigration that you are worth coming in a way.
Yes.
And also dubstep is not like the biggest thing in the world, so it's not as easy as maybe for other music genre. But for me, so this is my second time I'm applying for a visa. I applied the first time I think 6 years ago, and it got delayed.
Okay.
So we had to wait to apply again. It was not like a legal thing or whatever, but we wanted to wait to make sure that the next time is going to be okay. Then COVID happened. So we're like, okay, maybe it's the wrong time to apply for visa now.
Not then.
But
yes.
So I think we started like making a big folder with all the press, all that stuff, maybe 2 years ago, 2 years and a half. And then, then I'm here finally.
Oh my goodness. And I know you have to, because you're technically like an alien of like unique talents that can be here and deem worth that, like something that someone in the United States
they call that alien with extraordinary abilities, which is fucking crazy to me.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
And then I know like on the back end too, from a financial standpoint, you know, you have taxes that are taken out and fees that are taken out from the United States before it kind of gets back to you. And that's before the harsh reality that, you know, when you're, I would not deem you up and coming, but when you're, you know, playing shows and they're club shows, you're not always walking away with a ton of money. So it's a hard uphill battle.
Especially in the US, because obviously I'm going back to France. I don't live here, so I have to go back. And flights are very expensive. Also, hotels, everything. Like if I have to play 3 shows, I will have to book maybe 5 for hotel, 5 nights, plus the flight between all those cities and back to France. And yeah, it's a lot of money, but you know, I'm here for the music, not for the money. So
I love it. And that's what you have to be. I feel like even if you're, you know, in the United States, local dubstep aspiring producer, local aspiring producer, there's so many trials and tribulations that you have to go through that if you're not in it for the right reason, for the music and for the passion of like your craft, it is very difficult for it to become like a long-term journey.
Yeah, and it can be like very discouraging as well. If you don't aim for the right goals, I guess, for the right reasons.
Absolutely.
It can be very discouraging and just like, it can seem unfair in a way. I didn't feel this way, but I know some of my friends sometimes have this kind of feeling, and I can understand, you know. But yeah, you know, if you love music, that's what matters at the end. You'll get there. No matter how long it takes.
You just can't
Took
quit.
me 10 years.
Yeah.
I'm
but I feel like 10 years is like, you know, you'll still have people that are, where did this person come from? Where did this project come from? You know, I feel like it takes almost 10 years to be seen. And even though now we live in the age of, you know, you have the TikTok world and you have those producers and DJs who come out of that, it's kind of like we're in a hamster gerbil wheel that's like an experimentation of like, will that last? Is it, you know, the slow and steady road? I've always been told by people I've looked up to, it's kind of like, what house are you building? Are you building a house of brick or are you building a house of straw? What are your long-term goals? And I think for everybody, especially people who are through and through, you know, producers and in it for the love of music, which often I think can get misconstrued in the world of EDM and dance music and, you know, the lights, the money, the this, the that. You don't want to just do it for 2 to 3 years. You want to do it for as long as you can.
I mean, you have to. I mean, you know what it is to make music, how long it takes to make it happen. So you can't just do that for a couple of years. It's like your life, I guess, in my opinion.
No, I definitely agree with you. And I think going to the point of honing your craft, you can't do it quickly. Whenever you start music production, you suck. And
yeah, everyone sucks at the beginning.
Everyone sucks.
That's how it is.
Didn't you do stuff with Defire Society during COVID?
I used to, yeah.
I used to sit in on some of your listening sessions and like feedback sessions and stuff. And you know, you really see through that. It's kind of like the second you start sucking, like you will kind of be on that path to not sucking as much. But then in a world now where there's so many resources where you can YouTube, how to sound like Ivory, how to sound like Virtual Riot. Yeah. You also have to be unique and have this aspect to you, whether it is through technical abilities and music composition or your brand or your social media presence. Like you have this.
To bring something new to the
You have to bring something
to stand out, I guess. But
so
it's not the easiest part.
No, it's not. And it takes a lot of like time and diligence just to learn the basics, you know, your ABCs, to be able to understand the DAW.
And then I will then be able to find your own like sound and all that stuff.
Yep, absolutely. And what DAW do you work in, Ableton?
No, guess it.
Ooh, kiss it.
Guess it.
Oh, guess it.
Sorry.
I was like, I've never heard of that.
UDW.
You're either Reason or FL.
FL.
Okay.
But I started on Reason.
I started in Reason too. Reason was something that was. I'm a very visual learner, and the way that you would do the patch bay and Reason.
The racks.
Yep. It was very, because I come from like Foley, more in studio audio engineering, and looking at something like Ableton was very difficult for me to visually see what was happening and why it was happening.
Opposite for me.
Really?
Because I have no background in anything music-wise. So when I started in Reason, I was like, what is that? what are all those cables for? Like, what should I do? Where should I plug this? It's so weird.
But I'm sure it like kind of showed you like that 1, 2, 3. If I do this, it leads to this, that leads to that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And FL is, dope in its own right. I went from Reason to Ableton. I used Reason for all of 6 months, and then somebody said, "Why the hell are you using Reason?" And I went to, they said Ableton or FL. I feel like I know cracked producers in FL. And would you say like overseas you have a really big assortment like we do here? Like there's a lot of people in different DAWs, or is it like mostly FL, mostly Ableton?
Like in France?
Yeah.
Honestly, I just feel like worldwide, for the bass music scene, it's more about Ableton.
Ableton, okay.
Yeah, I love Ableton. I started to use it a little bit because of mentoring, because some people were asking me, "Hey, can you show me that on Ableton?" I was like, "Hey, I use FL." "Oh, never mind. I will not learn anything." I was like, this is the same thing. It's just like the interface that changed. But then I was like, okay, I got to learn a little bit. Maybe those people will be interested to see me do that shit in Ableton.
Absolutely.
And it's also exciting to me to learn new stuff every time. So learning a new DAW was also something cool to do.
I think that's so important as well, is just never stop learning, because there's always more techniques. There's always like a million different infinite things that you can do with one audio rack, with one audio effect. And at the end of the day, though, I think it is very intimidating to like a producer in their beginning years, but it's kind of like speaking a language. They all speak the same language. They just look a little different, and you just have to learn the workstation.
That's the interface and just maybe some vocabulary on some stuff. Definitely the same thing at the end. It can be confusing when you're a beginner.
Yeah, it can be confusing when you're a beginner, especially when, in my personal journey, learning about, when you had the automation light click off and you're like, whoa, this is how you modulate and this is how you bring these different, I was blown away. Or like in Ableton, Complex Pro and transposing and shifting, you're like, I don't sound like a chipmunk anymore. Like, this is crazy. And
every day you learn something new. It's always exciting.
And it just like keeps your mind working, just because I feel like when you're a young adult or when you're an adult, like in the traditional kind of societal way of working a job, you kind of learn a trade and you learn that craft that way. And once you've kind of learned all of the ins and outs, unless there's a new piece of technology or a new wave of X, Y, and Z or a change in the industry, you could do the same thing over and over forever.
Yeah. And you're just applying your knowledge, but it's not even learning anymore. So
I always feel like I'm learning. I always feel like between Patreon, YouTube, artists that I watch, like, even the world of TikTok now, where you can make those short form things.
I love it.
I love it. I do love it.
I love to learn stuff on those reels every time. I'm like, oh, this technique is so sick. Like, company used to do that, those things.
Yeah, or even like, the Photoshop things. Like, there's so many niches in like the short form content, YouTube short reels days, where even though it's difficult for me as an artist to do the whole, look what I made, look what I did, I love saying, seeing like, oh, do you, try panning this way, try avoid phasing this way, try this. And it's like in 5 seconds, I can save it. And then I go back to it and I go, okay, let's try and apply this. And this is sick. This is dope.
If I scroll through my Instagram feed, it's almost only production tips.
Yes.
And like people showing their DAW and hey, I did this way. This is my passion, like learning stuff every time.
And then, you can kind of take that and adapt it into your own way and do your own thing.
Yeah.
That's so much of that is like the world of sound design, or at least my personal journey was like learning bass synthesis. And I think one of my things that I'm not so good at is sound design. And I love resampling and I kind of love the world of that alleyway. But during COVID, I kind of went back to my basis in Massive Serum. That's when phase plants started being rolled out. And it's like, how do you make a kick from scratch? How do you do this? Just to know how to do it. Not saying you have to do it. Not saying that's the way to do it. But to be knowledgeable on it, it's a whole new world. That's really not even...
It makes everything easier after that.
Yes, it does. Because then you have those little light bulbs click and then you apply them to other more complicated, whether there's 4 oscillators.
Also, what you just said, for example, about how to make a kick. I feel like even if you're not making your own kicks to use in your own song, at least you know how to make them. So maybe you know how to pick a good kick for your song because you know how it works. You know what's the science behind what's a good kick or not. So it can help you in different ways, not only using it for your own project, but picking up good samples, for example.
You can't clean up shit samples. when
No, not really, yeah.
it's
You
hard.
can hide the crap, but
It's kind of like you're starting with your palette of paints, but if your palette of paints are all like brown and you can't like clean them up, you can't do a lot with it. And that's why I feel like, in the world of Splice and so many sample packs and stuff, it's always, you have the good ones and you have the really bad ones. And I find myself using the same drums a lot of the time because I know they're clean. I know they'll poke through the mix. I know they're processed in analog. Like, I know they work. Now, talk to me about, like, I want to go back to the beginning of not necessarily the Ivory project, but just like your pursuit of music. Were there like artists that inspired you? Like, how did you kind of get into, wow, I want to do this. Let me download this. Let me fuck around with this.
Well, that's a funny story. I used to have that one friend who after school time, he was coming home and he was showing me those videos of Excision and Daxic on YouTube. The very old songs.
Very old.
I was like, hey, I went to this party and they were playing this kind of music that was so sick. And honestly, I was like, this is crap. This sounds so bad. I don't know how you can enjoy that. It's so weird because now I'm doing it for a living. But and it was like, you should come with me at one show and I promise you it will change your mind. You will finally understand what dubstep is and you will understand why I appreciate it so much.
Yeah.
And I went to that one show. It was my 18th birthday. So that was my first EDM show ever. And Dirty Phonics was playing there that night. And they blew my mind. Yeah. Like, for real. And I was like, okay, I want to be there at their place.
Yeah.
I will make it. I will work my ass off and be on stage at some point. And you know what? 10 years later, we became friends, made a song together. Dirty Phonics and I toured together. Yeah. Exactly like 10 years after my first EDM concert. So it's like, very, yeah, exactly. So I remember that time there was no tutorials, nothing. I had to just turn knobs and see what they were doing. Massive. Crazy. At that time and Reason first. But then I met other producers and I think that's where things became a bit more interesting. Yeah. Like I started to learn way more stuff because obviously when you share that with other people, it's just, you just like, learn more stuff, basically.
And you're a sponge at that point too.
Sorry?
You're a sponge, like you're absorbing.
Yeah, exactly. You have so much stuff to learn that it's easy to,
take it in.
Yeah, exactly. Way easier than now. Like there's so much stuff that I can learn, but it's a bit harder to find new stuff to learn. Not saying that I know everything about music because I really don't, but it's different now.
But I agree with that. And it's something where like I have my own Patreon and like I really enjoy teaching people the basics because there's such big concepts. And when you're so not knowledgeable, it's like when you start with someone who doesn't have these predetermined techniques and the way that they already do things and the way that this, workflow works best for them, they're kind of like, oh, that's cool. Oh, that's cool too. And then when you get to a certain, I would say like level of experience or like time in your craft, it becomes a bit harder. And I think it becomes a bit more like detail orientated in what you choose to let in to affect your workflow.
Absolutely. It's way different. It's
crazy. And especially in dubstep too, like what you said about kind of having that circle of collaborative producers where you go, oh, whoa, that's how you do that. That's how you do this. There's so many in like outside of the world of dubstep, EDM, whatever. There's so many teams that come together to write records and write music. And, that's when you hit the 3 dots on Spotify and it says show credits and you see 20 different names and it's only one performer. And you go, holy shit. I think there's like a fine line in dance music that I'm really think we're moving in the right direction of like being a more collaborative art form where I'm always someone who believes like if the right cooks are in the kitchen, you'll really create something worthwhile and a record that will really last because a lot of the time, and I'm sure you've experienced this in your own right, and I would love to know your take on it. I think you see a lot of dubstep producers that are way more touring than I would say at home production, release songs and records just to withstand their touring, instead of like writing something to really last. But I also think that there's a difference between a banger and a record.
Yeah, I understand your point, and I also can understand why it is like that for some people. So we mentioned that before, but it takes a lot of time to make music and to make a good song, and some people may just not have the time anymore, especially when you are touring. I'm not touring as much as some other artists do, but I can't find any time to make music since I'm in the US. Even if I have like 1 or 2 days free, my brain is not here because I'm still stimulated with everything around me because it's very new. So I can't even imagine for some other people that tour every fucking day of the year. It must be very hard to, sit and think about making like, as you say, a song that's gonna last.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can't really dictate that too.
Yeah.
Like you can't tell if your song gonna last long or not. It's just about doing it with your heart, I guess, and it works, it doesn't work, who knows?
Putting it out.
Sometimes you can feel something, sometimes you're like, okay, I just made something. I can feel that it's going to be a banger, but you're never sure about it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. And I just think that like the balance of touring literally all the time and maybe having 1 month off here or there and then doing, sporadic amount of shows and then still having time to recoup at home. It's such a different mentality. And touring is not only, I'm not even thinking about touring internationally. Touring on the state side is just difficult physically, mentally. All of the people who can write on the road, I'm like, I commend you.
I respect that so much.
Yeah, it's crazy. So so you started your project 10 years into it, doing stuff with the Dirty Phonics boys. Did you feel like at any point that you had like, let's talk about the scene in Europe, or like very like predominantly, is it big? Is it small? Do you guys all like coexist in a small circle?
Yeah, we have a very strong scene in France, in Europe, but in France in particular, especially for dubstep.
Okay.
We used to be not that much people making dubstep. Maybe when I got started in the scene, we were maybe like 10 producers. Now I can't even count how many producers we have in France. But it's getting bigger and bigger. I feel like also the US have a big impact on how things are happening in Europe. Even like because of Los Lens, for example. Los Lens was, maybe I'm wrong, but to me it was like one of the first full dubstep festival that ever exists.
I think you're pretty correct
like
there.
Just dubstep,
on a massive scale.
Yeah, on a massive scale.
Yeah.
And I feel like this gives us all a lot of motivation as well, to see that something was happening out there.
Yeah.
See, but yeah, the scene is very big. I mean, not as big as in the US, but it gets way bigger. We got like crazy shows now. We got Rampage too. Have you heard of Rampage?
Oh yeah. Oh, Rampage is actually coming stateside for the first time ever, and I just feel like it's definitely running alongside the drum and bass wave that's coming. And I'm like, if they're finally taking the step overseas, that's how you know. Yeah. And it's going to be predominantly another drum and bass dubstep.
I love this.
I know. Yes. That's so exciting though. And it's crazy because I feel like the music that is always in the dubstep and the, everything back to like Caspa and Rusko and like early Rinse FM days and stuff like that. All of the music overseas has always influenced what DJs and producers have done here as far as, huge bass orientated names. I mean, I think of Bad Clad. I think of the guys that really, the Never Say Die movement, like all of that stuff. And then for us to kind of like blow it up over here, but the producers are still so much more cracked overseas. It's kind of like, I think so. What's your take on it? I think I've just sat down and spoken to, and also like seen so many sets where when you're living in that like Disciple realm, the Never Say Die realm, Zomboy, mostly like old Los Angeles, like 2020, 2021. And so many of their sets, track lists or 101 track lists, whatever, are like all of the stuff from the foreign guys.
Yeah. I see what you mean. But I don't know. I know so much like good producers in the US. Like
I do too. But I think they're so influenced by you guys.
Maybe. Well,
I think so.
I'm talking for my friends, but we all appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think like everything from like the melodic rhythm movement, like all that stuff came out of Europe. It didn't come out of America.
That's true.
And,
Big up
you know,
Chime.
Chime. Even
You carried
Dr. Ushu.
Dr. Ushu.
Yeah. He did a lot of melodic stuff too. Like, and he's dabbled in some drum and bass stuff. I just played out one of his.
This guy is cracked.
Yeah.
He does everything.
I know.
He raps too.
It's amazing.
If he watched that, he will be mad at me.
No, I mean, it's just incredible because I think it just, when you have that drive, especially to get over here, you become very innovative. I feel like, and there's less kind of copying and more unique ways to approach maybe the same thing. And because I feel like, and I'm sure you know so many producers that overseas that just kind of emulate. And I think when you start as a producer, you're emulating, and then you get to a certain point, and then you're like creating, and you're doing your own thing and like your own right and finding your own
You
sound.
mean like being inspired?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Like, how do I make a track like this? Like, you know, how you would tell somebody to use a reference track and look at it and span and study the
I'll be honest with you, I
structure.
still do that for my own songs.
Yeah.
Like I sometimes when I'm not inspired at all, I'm just gonna listen to some like new releases on Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe download those songs, put them in FL, and just listen to it like 10 times, and try to, you know, catch something from those songs. Like, oh, I just noticed that flow in the background, that there was that synth or that, and just, you know, gives me inspiration. Sometimes I also I don't know if a lot of people do that, but I try to recreate song. Like,
No, it's definitely
literally like trying to recreate the same song, and then once I'm close to it, then I just fuck with it and have fun and make it my own.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't sound like the actual original song. But it helps me to, you know, get started and have some inspiration for it, I guess.
You learn so much by doing that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I feel like when I talked to Virtual Ride and Barely Alive a very long time ago, and this just started, we did it at Forbidden Kingdom. And they said that, I think Val was like, I used to recreate Skrillex songs, and that's what I would do.
It's so helpful. You
Because
learn
it's
so much. Yeah.
It's so helpful. The way that things sit, the way that things are panned. Like if you're looking at, and now there's so many plugins that, God, you could just pull away
Like
violin.
visualizers and stuff.
Yeah. You could just pull away
Even
violin.
stem splitter, like the AI stem splitter.
Yeah.
It helps you to understand, you know, different parts of songs. Like you can just remove the vocals and try to understand what was going on in the background. And there's so much cool stuff now you can use to learn. Basically.
Technology is there usually to help. You know, it's kind of like that whole thing where don't, you know, work smart, don't work hard.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
There's just so many plugins out there, and there's ones that everybody uses, and then there's ones that are very unique and cool in its own right, especially in like the sound design world. So let's talk about the creative process. So like when you're starting a song, where, you know, do you have a method, or is it different every time? Like
different every time.
Okay.
It's really, I start a song depending of how I feel. You know, if I have like a kind of specific kind of bass in mind, I'm just gonna try to make sound design first, then build around it, drums, then intro, then whatever. Sometimes I'm more into like trying to create a theme track.
Okay.
A track with a theme, sorry. So I will mostly start with an intro, create something epic, try to put myself in a vibe, you know. And it really depends, honestly. Sometimes there's a lot of songs I created because of my sample packs, because I was like making those kicks, snares, basses, and then I was like, okay, those samples are in my project. I just have to fuck with it and make a song now. So it's really depends of my my mood, let's say. I don't like to have a plan.
Yeah.
I don't like to have a plan. When I have a plan, a precise plan, like let's say I'm making a collab with someone and we're trying to go for this specific idea, I get stuck every time.
Really?
Because I need that freedom I need that sparkle that gonna, you know, makes me inspired. Sometimes it's just a happy accident, just tweaking a knob and be like, oh, this is sick. Let's just like remove the entire drop and work on this instead. That's what it works.
It's
sometimes.
always great when you get a lead that way. It just happened in a remix I was doing, and I was fucking around in Omnisphere, and I was just like, that's it, delete everything, that's it. Like
that preset sounds better than everything I was doing for 5
hours. Yeah. But I always say, like, it's never wasted time, because if you didn't put in that time, you wouldn't have gotten to X sound, X moment that you're now like, this is it. This is what fits perfectly. And I think also it's like just knowing, you know, I definitely put myself in a spot where I have a method of approaching sometimes, and it does exactly that.
Okay.
You know, you kind of say, well, all right, I've really been enjoying remixing things lately, because I think on my own end, when I'm doing writing original music, it's often like, okay, we're going to do some vocal ideas and then kind of build around here. And, or maybe you're starting with chord progression and going from there, and I'll just get stuck instead of just fucking around and playing with stems and saying, okay, the original song's in 130, we're going to make it 174. We're going to just like make it crazy and just run off it.
It can be hard at the same time, because at some point you have to be productive. You can't spend days and days doing nothing and just experimenting, because you have to get some shit down.
I know. So what's the point for you where you go, you know, do you feel like you're just, obviously you're seasoned and obviously you have like this sound that you really do kind of dabble around in this like Venn diagram where you can go here and you can go here. But when I predominantly listen to like the Ivory discography, like I do know it's you. And is there moments where you kind of have to go, okay, you need to commit to something, or you need to say the song is done? I think that's a very hard part too.
This is the hardest part. The hardest part for me. Like, that's why I don't release as much music as other producers do.
Yeah.
I have so much like on my SoundCloud and private playlist with so much songs, and I just can't manage to finish them, because I'm like all about the details and all that stuff that takes way more time than actually writing the song. Yeah. You have to commit, and I'm bad at it. Really bad at it.
It's the last 5%.
Yeah, the worst.
The worst.
The most difficult.
And I assume you do you kind of do everything start to finish? Do you use an engineer? Do you kind of...
No, I do everything from,
Do you have to, you know, obviously as ear fatigue is such a thing, do you finish the song composition wise and then you take maybe 2 weeks and you go, I'm going to come back and now mix this? Like,
I usually mix as I go.
Okay.
Yeah, because...
I don't know how people don't mix as they go, though, because that's very difficult.
Yeah.
Like,
if it doesn't sound good, I'm not inspired. So it has to be mixed a little bit in order for me to enjoy what I'm doing. If it sounds like no sidechain, nothing, like, this is not enjoyable for me. So I always have to, sometimes it takes me like 2 hours to lay down drums and just one bass. And I'm like, I feel very stupid. I'm like, okay, it sounds good. Now I can get started and make this song.
But it's having those like layers, and like with your, you know, are you doing drum synthesis? Are you working off of your own kind of sample packs? Like, how do you kind of go about that way, or everything is just different?
It's different.
There's so many things to use.
It depends of my laziness that day.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just drop my own samples. Sometimes I'm like, okay, I will try to, you know, make a pan snare. So I want that ding in the snare, and I will go spend like 2 hours trying to nail that tonality. And I don't know. Sometimes just little things like that, you know, makes me excited about music and gives me that inspiration.
But it's the subtle details that I think when, you know, I think they're in this lane specifically, there's a lot of producers who get caught up in producing for other producers. But I will say, as a producer, when you hear the little ear candies of the time where you're like, that definitely took him a whole day. But it's so cool. It's self like satisfying, and you're like, damn, that like slams. That it really, really goes off. And I guess like in the world of production and composition and just writing in general, do you know, are you kind of a night owl? Do you have like a daily routine when you're home? It's always different.
I have such an unhealthy lifestyle when it comes to especially music and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, I just, I'm very obsessed with music. So I can like spend 12, 15 hours a day on a song, and just sometimes just don't even go to sleep, because I'm like stuck on something, and I'm like, okay, I can't go to sleep until I manage to finish that drop or something. And it makes my life a bit complicated sometimes because of that.
I can't imagine.
It's I don't have any, you know, routine, or I'm trying to, like, this year is the year I'm trying to
get a better force you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because I don't have that much time anymore. And also, you know, just health wise, I need to wake up in the morning, have breakfast, do some music, do some email, do all that stuff. And this is something I'm really bad at. I wake up and I'm like jumping on my computer and try to finish the idea I was stuck on the day before, and just like keeps repeating every day for years.
See, but I think I'm exactly like that, but I don't often get to that point because when I'm writing something and it starts to all flow and it starts to be very cohesive and you get very excited, I will go to bed and I will dream about it and I will wake up and I will go right back to my computer. But I only reach that point, let's say 1 every 4 tracks. You know, like, but I can't imagine if I was that excited about every single thing I wrote.
That's funny you say that because if my day goes well, if I'm productive, I can do stuff in FL, I will go to sleep early. I will be like happy and be like, okay, tomorrow I will nail it.
Right?
But it's more about me being frustrated and obsessed of not nailing it that day, and
getting done,
so weird,
listening on the phone, listening on the laptop.
I smoke cigarettes. Every time I go out to smoke cigarettes, I have to render my song from FL, put it on SoundCloud, and when I'm out, I'm listening to it on repeat.
I think that's a thing.
That's my routine.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing. My boyfriend will be like, "You're listening to that again?" I'm like, "Yes, I'm so sorry." I'm like in the bathroom, blow drying my hair, listening to this on like high, and I'm just like, "Here we go."
I have the playlist with like 100 times the same song but different versions. I'm like, "Oh, this kick feels nice. I should go back to that version." I'm like just tripping on the.
And realizing, I think the biggest thing with me is always the car test, because everybody's car stereo sounds different, and I'll like get in someone's car and I'll listen to something and it'll sound great, and then I'll listen to my car. No.
Your car perfectly. So
yeah. It's a wild thing. It's, you almost have to be obsessed, but then you have to be able to put a foot down and say, okay, you're being unhealthy. You're not taking care of yourself. You can't. But there's like this fine line, and I think it's really difficult for people to master. But when you're touring all the time, if you don't take care of yourself, you will crash and burn.
Yeah, definitely. Totally. I'm not touring enough. I think to really experience that yet, but I already feel that it can be overwhelming.
I remember seeing Subsonic's tweet about it maybe a few years ago, 1 or 2 years ago, when it was really just starting to get to a point where playing. I'm at a point where I play a few shows a month. I'm very content. Do I want to keep playing shows every weekend? 100%. But like, am I content with being able to work my job, sleep, go to the gym, live life, have a personal life, then tour and make music that I like to make? I love that. But doing that and being gone every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, every single week is a very different situation.
Yeah.
And I remember just him saying, like, I have to force myself to be healthy. I have to force myself to stop X, Y, Z.
Yeah, it's a mature, point of view. I mean, reflection.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Yes. It really puts everything into perspective.
Yeah, exactly. It's very important. You have to think about the future, because if you keep going this way for years, then you're going to be mentally and physically destroyed, and your career will not last long because of that.
And we've seen it happen to a lot of people that get to this point, and then it's just not sustainable. And you never want to see that happen, especially to friends, especially to people that you care about.
True.
And I can't, and then put on top of that, international travel from another continent to here all the time.
Not easy.
So when you kind of started, what was the differentiation between you starting to make music, and did you feel like you signed a lot of music and got established before you started playing shows, or did you start playing shows and that kind of drove you to write more music? Like, how did your come up kind of go?
More like the second thing you say.
Okay.
I was making music, and I had a bunch of shows in Paris. I was playing the same venue a lot.
Yeah.
And then I think everything got really started when I had my first release with NSD and then Disciple. And then after that, I had like way more shows, obviously, way more like labels offer and all that shit. But before that, I was just like, in my room playing shows, not expecting anything from anyone, actually. I think this is something that also helped me not being too frustrated about the industry and being sort of stuck in Europe.
Yeah.
I never, ever expected anything to happen in my career. Like, I never expected a label to sign me. I never expected to play this show, or, I was just waiting, doing my work and being patient. And I think that helped me.
Patience.
Yeah, that helped me a lot to just keep going and stay motivated during all these years.
And trusting in the process, and also like understanding that, in this industry, nobody really owes you anything. And I think a lot of people come in with a predetermined notion of whether this is how my journey is going to go, or I've put in X amount of years, I've done X amount of this, and why hasn't my time come, and I'm deserved, da-da-da-da. And if you can block out the social media and the this and the that and the rumble and whatever, and really just focus on your craft and music and try and be patient, which is a lot easier said than done, I'm sure it helps substantially.
It helps, but
Yeah.
of course you will definitely seem slower than everybody else in the scene, which makes sense because you're not doing the same kind of work.
Everybody plays a different game.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, everybody, they got their own path, as I know.
Absolutely, and
the goal is the same at the end. So.
Yes, and that's the thing. It doesn't matter how you get there. If you get there eventually, and it's to a place where,
as long as your journey is, you enjoy your journey, you're not hurting yourself doing it. That's what matters. No matter what other people do, the way they do it, it's more about yourself.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people are, very about what other people do, and I think this is very, very destructive. Like this is one of the worst feeling mentality to have, and I'm no disrespect to the people who are like feeling this way, because I kind of understand the industry and just the world in general makes you feel this way, but it's not healthy and will never help you to look up to others and be like, hey, those guys are doing this, I'm not doing this, why? Yeah, your time will come, just keep working. Absolutely. You don't know what those people went through. You have no fucking idea. Maybe they look like it was easy, but maybe it was not.
Oh, man.
And people, especially nowadays, online, you have to show the good aspect of your life. So it's even harder now to understand that.
Transparency.
Yeah, exactly. It's hard for people to understand that it's not easy, because when they look up to their favorite artist, it's all like fun and beauty and,
You see the top 2% of their life, because that's what, you want people to see. And that's what your team or your this or the look you want to have, and it never goes that way.
No, never,
ever.
So yeah, I think that's a big problem in today's society.
Do you see that happen with? It's interesting because I feel like I've only spoken with a few artists that have not been stateside, and they have all said in different ways what you just said about the way of it. Patience, didn't expect anything to come out of this. I just made music. Do you have colleagues over, in Europe that are very much so, frustrated with the place that they are at? Or is this more something you see that is common stateside?
No, I've got some friends who are like kind of frustrated, and I, as I said earlier, I can understand, but I'm trying as much as I can to also help them with this, letting them know that we've all been there. We've all been patient.
Yep.
But it's kind of saddens me sometimes. Yes. Because I notice people are not feeling good inside because of that. Nope. And most of the time, those people are the ones that are trying to act like they're like the best and everything is going fine. But in reality, they're like very frustrated of what's happening. And they just got to understand that, again, it takes time. Everybody got their own path. It's totally different for everyone. You can't just imagine that it's the same thing for everybody. It's just not. And that's why it's just like, even from the podcast and conversations, like you can tell your journey, I can tell my journey, but there's no A, B, C, D, E, F step to this that's going to be the way that your career blossoms. And I think, again, harder said than done. But if you can just try and put on the blinders, have a small circle of supportive individuals. And, I get social media is a thing, but I also don't think it's at the end of the day a determining factor without the music. You still have to have, even though the brand and the this and the that, and it's just stuff that agencies and managers push down everybody's throats. That helps. It helps, but without the music, it's not going to happen. Yeah. It's so true, and it's always an interesting conversation, because I think the same thing happens in a lot of different pockets of the world. It's just, you can't quit, because if you quit, then it's really not ever going to happen. And you spend your entire life doing that. So if you quit, what do you have left? Most people. Absolutely. And I think also being open to maybe things that you didn't deem were going to come on your journey, like just to weird opportunities and, interesting things that maybe could still get you to the same destination, but isn't exactly what your friend or your buddy did. Yeah. Just like the unexpected, I guess. Unexpected things that are always like lovely. When did you play Lost Lands? Did you play Lost Lands this past year? I played,
Okay.
2023 edition.
2023
That was
this
my
year.
first show ever in the US.
And then Shaq also brought you up. You guys played your track together.
Yes, he played a few of my songs, and yeah, that was crazy.
Isn't that crazy?
I don't even have words for that. To be honest, it's just like unreal. It still seems unreal sometimes.
He was just here at Mission Ballroom, and it was my first time seeing him, and just such like a light and a cool show, and like a fun fucking dude, and
It's a fun person.
It's wild. Just somebody who handles himself that way. It's just like, and his whole team too. It's just, and inspires you to be better. And it's like, okay, this is the possibility of where.
It's a really good mindset that they all have.
Incredible
pushing forward.
Mindset. Oh my gosh. And you know, Lost Lands is like the dubstep Super Bowl. And even though, you know,
I love this name, the Super Bowl.
It really is. Yeah. It's this kind of cool thing. And I did Lost Lands in 2021, and it was my first one because there's.
You mean you played?
Yes,
okay.
yes. So then there's certain festivals that I became very much so a non-goer unless I was involved in a musical way. But Lost Lands was one of those things where I kind of saw it. I think it started in 18, and then I saw it in 19, and I was like, damn, that looks cool. I was like, that's sick. And then when I finally went as an artist, I was like, this is just, it's like all your friends. It's all these people you've talked online with, and you're all just kind of thrown in this area.
It's the industry meeting.
And his team and his family that helps put everything on. Festivals aren't ran that way. It's a very cool thing.
Yeah.
It's wild. And so you did that. You did Tomorrowland last year?
Last year too.
Last year, okay. And then have you done most of the dates with company? Or are you on a few dates with Kyle?
I was on a few dates with him, not all of them, but
I'm sure those shows have been crazy.
All of them.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, should have a company for having me on those shows. Like, that was insane.
Yeah, he's a lovely individual, and also just has been around the block and is super fucking talented at his craft and continues to evolve and do new.
I always say that, but he has been one of those people who told me when I was in France, I mean, without a visa, told me the day you got a visa, I got you on my shows. It happened. The day I got my visa, a few weeks later, we knew that I was about to play with him on his tour. So.
Love people who keep their word.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Yeah. Especially that's funny because, you know, he's from like the other side of the planet. He could have not given a fuck about me, if that makes sense, you know, but we became friends online. We hang a lot on Discord making music. We had a bunch of collabs together. So that was also, it kind of makes sense that at some point we got to play shows together.
Yeah.
But yeah, forever grateful for that.
That's amazing. And I mean, it's a testament to the community. I think the now kind of releasing in different spaces, I will say that like the dubstep space has a lot of like very, very great individuals. Mm-hmm. And usually they are very honed in and specific on their craft. And like they really have been doing this for a long time, because I think, you know, writing songs and writing records and learning how to make dubstep is
different, right?
Is very different. And I feel like jumping into the deep end was jumping in to make dubstep. And then you kind of go to these other genres, and it's not easier by any means, but you have this like simplistic aspect that you don't necessarily always have in dubstep, where it's like, wow, I can focus on these things and maybe embellish here a little bit more. But I don't think I could do that as coherently without being in dubstep first.
Yeah.
It whips you into shape. It's not an easy genre to make.
Yeah, no, definitely not. It's like science to me.
Yeah.
Like every time I'm trying to explain what dubstep is to friends who are not into it, I make sure to explain it's all about like that math, sound design, crazy like synthesizer and processing and all that stuff, because people don't really realize that. They just listen to it and it's cool noises, but yeah. Have you got an idea of all those noises are made?
It's literally math.
It's crazy.
And understanding that like each frequency is a note, and you doing subtractive things here and highlighting other frequencies here, like it's always that note to frequency chart that I would print out.
I got this in my FL Studio background. It's literally a note to frequency chart.
Yeah, and you know, put erosion on this and bump up the frequency here, and people can't hear this here, so cut it out or do whatever. Like it really is math, or like the delay trick, 60,000 divided by your BPM. Like it is math, and I hated math, and
Me too.
so it is. It's just very interesting, and I can always see it on people's faces when they're like, fuck, this is actually like a science and a math. And it's like, yes, it is.
Dubstep and drum and bass must be the most like complicated stuff to make.
Complicated.
To produce.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
Maybe some other music that have sound design like that, but I can't think of any.
The neurosynthesis and neurobasses and like this embarkment of like, I kind of feel like I've mastered Reese's and now I'm kind of hopping over into neuro and like just attacking it from that way and making neurobasses from scratch
it's really fun.
I love
crazy. It's a lot about like filtering and resampling, filtering again, resampling.
Yep. And like, just like for me, a lot of it is like, okay, how do you do this and not phase? And how do you do this and not do this? And
yeah, there's a lot of like stuff you need to pay attention to.
I can hear it and maybe I'll take it off my studio monitors and I'll put my headphones on and I have Audio Technicas and I have Bayer Dynamics that are both very different.
The DT7.
I
got both too.
Yeah, and I like the open back, but it's just such a different sound than the Audio Technicas. But I like listening on both when I really need to hone in on something. And you listen to one sound on all three different ways, and you're like, holy fuck. You can hear like things and just it's wild. But that's what makes it so exciting, you know, and you're like, wow, like, okay, I mastered this or I did this or I made this today. And then you're excited to go back and open the DAW.
And excited to learn something new the next day too.
I know.
Be able to apply what you learned yesterday.
It's so crazy. Oh my goodness.
I think that's why I love making music so much. It's just because it's always new stuff that is happening. You can only surprise yourself. You know, you can never do the same thing. It's technically impossible to open a plugin and do exactly the same sound. So it's always like a new journey every day.
A new journey every day. Is there stuff that you're working on now that you're excited for? Anything you can talk about, like music-wise, that you're just like, I really, you know, anything in the drum and bass lane, anything?
Yeah, I got a few drum and bass songs I'm working on. Okay. I will try to push that a little more this year. I got new collabs with Shaq too. New songs with Company too. Bunch of collabs with Sultan too. We started something recently. Yeah, I'm so excited about it. I've always been wanting to work with him, so it's funny.
He's super talented. Another one of those people that you listen and I can tell it's Salt.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Right away. Yeah, definitely. Got his own like sound for sure.
So exciting.
Yeah, I'm just basically I will try to push more collabs this year because I've been like working solo EPs for the past few years. Did a few collabs with my friends, Amplifier, like a lot with him. Company too, I mentioned it before, but I want to try to do more with more people, try to just have my circle of friends. Yeah, absolutely. I used to be very, it's hard for me to work on collabs because I'm all about details, as I said earlier, and this is not very compatible when you make a collab. You know,
you have to be open.
Yeah, exactly. And it took me a long time to be able to just let go my ideas and be like, okay, just do whatever you want with this project.
Yeah.
Like do whatever you want, give it back to me. And also when someone gives like stems back to me, I'm like, oh, I can't touch that. He did that this way. I don't want to, you know, mess up.
Undo what he did.
And I'm like, fuck it. It's a collaboration. So the mindset of it's just blending stuff together and make something cool out of it. So.
Especially when there's two distinct sounds. I feel like early on, I've definitely done a lot of collabs in the last 2 years, and now I'm going into this year will be predominantly all solo stuff and remixes, and then I want to work on collabs this year to do next year. And I think I learned so much collaborating, especially in early chapters with other people where it's like, okay, we both work in Ableton. Even if you're sending me stems, I'm still like analyzing how you're doing something, or if I can see your racks or your post-processing chains, like that was a huge learning gap for me. Or how are we mastering this? How are we leveling it out? But then it's like, okay, now I want to do my own thing and I don't need to touch it. And then you open up again. And especially when someone has like a sound, like I did a collab with the Brig very early on, and he has such a distinct sound, the way that he processes spaces and everything. And I'm like, this is dope. Like you can learn just a lot. You can learn a lot.
Yeah, I've learned a lot from the friends I met collab with, especially Company and Amplifier, because every time I used to work on songs together, we were like hanging on Discord at the same time. So we're like sharing screens and just sharing like techniques with each other, which is crazy.
That's how I feel like it should work.
Sometimes it's hard because
I know.
Like Kyle is living like, I mean, there must be like 9 hours of time difference between LA and Paris. So
you're right.
when I call him, it's like either 3, 4 a.m. for me or for him. So it's not always possible.
Ideal.
Yeah.
But that's like the collaborative effort that's there, where like sometimes if you just get a folder of stems, then you send another folder of stems. It's never really like you're like, hey, we're speaking and we're talking about this. And that's why I love Discord. I've been looking into other platforms that are stronger than Discord to do that for this coming year. But it's always nice just hearing someone's take on what you're doing right there, doing like a round robin where it's like, you have 30 minutes, I have 30 minutes, you have 30 minutes, I have 30 minutes.
I love this.
That's always like a fun little thing. And then touring coming up, you're with Company.
Yes.
So you have a few more dates with him. Where are you going to be at?
Arizona.
Okay.
In a week and a half.
Lovely. Phoenix, probably.
I'm not sure Phoenix. I can't. I'm
somewhere in Arizona.
Yeah,
no, that's perfect. It's good.
There's a place called Sunbar.
Yeah, Phoenix. You're in Phoenix.
It's Phoenix.
Yes,
okay, and there's another city close to Phoenix, like maybe 1 hour away from Phoenix. Can't remember. Tempe.
Tempe. Okay,
yes.
Tempe, Arizona. Okay.
So those 2 cities.
Okay, lovely. That's exciting.
And then back to France again.
Well, you have it definitely in for you, and I'm glad you've been like enjoying your time here. And
thank you.
Denver treated you well, and Fort Collins treated you well.
Yeah.
The kids here are crazy. No, they're not kids, but
definitely
they're crazy
for sure.
Yeah, they know how to show up, show out. They love bass music. This is definitely like the dubstep capital.
I had a good time. I could feel that this energy. Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Especially when like when you get people who come over with visas finally, and so many people know your music, and so many people know the songs, and they're doing like the dubstep karaoke shit. Yes. And it's like very fun and exciting.
Such a great experience.
Yeah, such a great experience. All right, before I let you go, I have 5 questions to ask you. We're gonna do like a little speed round.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, let me just drink one more time.
Yes, absolutely. I know we're freezing. We're freezing you out.
It's kind of cold.
It is freezing. I can tell it's now like negative degrees outside.
Damn.
All right. We are ready. We're doing a flash round with Ivory. Let's do it. Okay. What is your favorite city to play in thus far in the United States?
Honestly, I'd say Denver.
Denver.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Ogden. Shout out Company. Shout out Kyle. Yeah. What has been your favorite release in the past year?
These are one of my collabs with Company or Simplifier. Also, my song with Shaq and Integrity. Yes. Mosh Pit.
Love Ricky. Love Nitty Gritty. Yeah. And love Shaq. That's so wild. That's so crazy.
It is.
What has been your favorite festival to play in the world?
I'd say Lost Lands because I make dubstep and there's no other festival such as Lost Lands. Mm-mm. Like it's so unique.
No.
I actually haven't played a lot of festivals in my life. Maybe less than 10. So.
But you played some big ones.
Yes.
Yes. You played some big ones. And Lost Lands is just so exciting, and hopefully we'll get you return quite soon. That would be lovely.
I would love to.
I know, it's just the perfect crowd for you, for dubstep, yes. Like period. Definitely. Period.
Can't go better than that.
Are there any labels that you want to release in 2024 or release on in 2024?
Yeah, I want to work with Phase One's label, Son of Mayhem.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really love what they've been putting out since the beginning of the label. Also, I'm going to work with Monster Cat more this year. So these are my
Monster Cat.
Yeah. The labels I'm looking up to this year so far.
Lovely. One pro and one no for touring. What is something you love and what is something you don't love?
Well, I love touring because it's very exciting, especially since I'm in the US. Every city I'm hitting, every people I met is the first experience every time. So it's like such a big adventure. Mm-hmm. But I just don't really like being away from home for so long. I'm so attached to my studio, to my, to my little world. Mm-hmm. And it's always kind of tough to leave my family and leave my studio. It's just,
Yeah.
But other than that, it's
the balance.
Yeah, exactly. It cannot balance.
It definitely balances out. And then when you're finally home, you're like, oh, yes, I get a chance to breathe. Now I want to go tour again.
Also, maybe being tired all the time is the biggest concept.
Yeah. Now waking up at like 3 a.m., sometimes going to bed at like, not even that, like maybe not even sleeping in general, just going.
I played a show in Tampa, the subsonic show. And
you're at Ritz.
Yes. That was crazy. Yeah. And I remember going back to my friend's place. It was maybe 4 in the morning. I have to jump in a fucking plane at 6. Something like that. I couldn't even sleep.
Were you with Mikey Plasma?
Yes.
Jessica told me that you almost didn't make it to the airport. And I was like, that sounds like him. Yeah.
That was that show.
Yeah. Oh, that's hilarious. And what a good show to have there.
Yes.
It's definitely one of the bigger clubs for bass music in Florida. And just to have Subtronics there who really shouldn't be playing a venue that size is insane.
Yeah.
Oh my
crazy. I loved it.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's wonderful. Well, I'm so glad you're here in the United States. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate you, Ivory. Cool. All right. Bye, guys. See ya.
Peace.